Steam just dropped a surprise Black Friday sale and I found 5 games that run great on the Steam Deck, and they're also at some of the lowest prices I've ever seen for these titles. They're cheap, they're fun, and they play incredibly well on the Steam Deck. So let's jump in with the first one.
Am I dead?
You are banished from death. A curse binds us together.
Who are you?
Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor is 80% off for $3.99, and this is still one of those games that fits perfectly on the Steam Deck. The combat feels great, the movement is smooth, and the Nemesis system always keeps things interesting. Even today, the game holds up really well, and playing it on handheld makes the world feel a lot more personal and focused. It's very easy to dive in for a quick fight or get pulled into hunting captains for more than an hour. Performance-wise, the deck handles the game really nicely. On high settings, the game usually sits around 75 FPS. However, it can dip a bit when a lot is happening on the screen, and because of that, it just makes more sense to cap it to 60 FPS. It just feels smoother, and the game stays consistent the whole time. For battery life, at that 60 FPS cap on OLED, you can get about 2 hours and 45 minutes, and on the LCD, that will be around 2 hours. So overall, great performance, great feel, and an easy recommendation at this price.
On site. Attention all citizens. By order of the Lord Regent of the Sith Watch, all contempt.
Next up, Dishonored, 75% off at €249. Dishonored is honestly one of the cleanest feeling games you can play on the Steam Deck. The controls respond instantly, the movement feels right, and the game is super comfortable to play in handheld. Whether you go loud or stay stealthy, everything stays smooth and the pacing works perfectly for portable sessions. It's a great mix of action and exploration without ever feeling overwhelming. Performance on the deck is about as good as it gets. You can run it at max settings at 90 FPS on the OLED without any issues at all. The game doesn't stutter, it doesn't hitch, it just runs flawlessly. And the battery life is surprisingly strong for those numbers. On the OLED, you can get about 5 hours at 90 FPS, and on the LCD, you can get about 3 hours and 30 minutes at 60 FPS. If you want to stretch your time even more, you can cap the game to 60 FPS on the OLED, and it will run for close to 6 hours, which is incredible for a game that still looks this good. Dishonored is easily one of the best performing games on the Steam Deck, and I wholeheartedly recommend it.
We've lost. The Empire's hunting Jedi survivors. Now, they know who you are.
At number 3, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. This one is 90% off for $3.99, and this is a very big cinematic game, but it still plays surprisingly well on the Steam Deck. The combat feels good, parries feel responsive, and exploring the different planets and environments looks great on the handheld screen. It definitely has some heavier areas and some stuttering, but the deck keeps things stable enough that the overall experience is very smooth. The only small annoyance is that it installs the EA app, but you only need to deal with it for the very first time you launch the game. After that, the game just opens normally, gets out of the way, you don't need to log in every time. Now on medium settings, the Steam Deck holds at around 45 FPS, however it can dip to 30 sometimes, and it's not very consistent. I would either suggest you play this at 30 FPS or you try to play it with lossless scaling. For battery life, on the OLED it's about 2 hours and 30 minutes, and on the LCD it's about 1 hour and 30 minutes. It's definitely more demanding than the others, but the Steam Deck handles it pretty well, and for this price, it's a great handheld Star Wars experience.
In Mad Max, you begin with nothing.
Next up, Mad Max, 85% off for $2.99. This is a game that I will never stop recommending on the Steam Deck. It just feels like it was meant to be played on a Steam Deck. The driving feels weighty and satisfying, the hand-to-hand combat hits hard, and the open world runs very smoothly on the deck. It's one of those games where you start out just wanting to clear a camp, and suddenly you've been roaming the wasteland for an entire session. Everything from the movement to the UI just works naturally on the Steam Deck. Performance is more than excellent. On the high preset, the game runs at around 80 FPS on the OLED, and you can get about 2 hours and 45 minutes of battery life at that level. It still works and feels great, but if you prefer higher FPS, switching to the normal preset will get you 90 FPS with no hitching, no issues, and the battery life will jump to around 3 hours on the OLED. If you want even longer session, capping the game to 60 FPS gets you to more than 4 hours of battery life on the OLED, and on the LCD you're looking at around 2 hours and 30 minutes. For the sale price, this is still one of the best open world games you can play on your Steam Deck.
The island of Hong Kong is an energetic fusion of East and West, old and new.
And last but not least, Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition, 85% off for €299. Sleeping Dogs, I think, is still one of the most fun open world action games out there. The hand-to-hand combat feels great, the driving is easy to control, and the city is a blast to explore. It's a really smooth game to enjoy on the Steam Deck, the pacing works well, the missions go by quickly, and everything just feels responsive on the Deck's controls. On max settings, the game runs mostly at 90 FPS, however it can dip into the 70s in busy areas, and even when it drops, I think the gameplay still stays smooth and the frame time doesn't feel shaky. Battery life looks like this. On the OLED you're gonna get about 2 hours and 45 minutes at 90 FPS, and on the LCD you're gonna get about 2 hours and 30 minutes at 60 FPS. If you cap the game at 60 FPS on the OLED, you can reach about 3 hours and 30 minutes. My personal recommendation for this game, just play on medium or high if you want a steady 90 FPS, or lock the game to 60 FPS if you want the best max settings experience. So those are my top 5 Black Friday picks, all games I've personally tested, all running great on the Steam Deck and at prices lower than we usually ever see. Whether you want open world mayhem, stealth or lightsabers, you can grab any of these without worrying about performance and you'll have a great experience. If you enjoyed this list, hit the like button, subscribe to Steamflow and drop a comment with the best deals you've found so far. There are a ton of games on sale right now and I'd love to hear some of your recommendations. Usually you guys have a ton of good recommendations that I overlook all the time, so I'd love to hear some of yours. Hit me up in the comments. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.